So welcome everyone. And if at any time during the course of this next few hours you can't hear me, do this. And I'll do my best. Yes, I'll do my best to get closer to the microphone or raise my volume. Yeah, all good? Okay. All right, excellent. Well, welcome to you all. This is my last hurrah for this time around. And I've been really happy to be here and to meet up with all of you and to share this remarkable path. So I think trying to decide the best way forward, I will recapitulate a little bit first, if we might start that way, after we settle in. As our general rule, we come into the room and into our bodies and take a good seat. So please, find your meditation posture, allowing your spine to lengthen and straighten as much as is possible for you. In comfort, you see, relaxed and still. Feel your body on the cushion, on the seat. Being in this room. And think, how's my body? How's my mind? Just as it is. And then I invite you to bring your awareness to the crown of your head. And there, imagine a small sphere of light whose nature is love. And allow it to begin to descend down. And as it does so, this light shines and softens, releases, lets go of any tension that it rests upon. As it flows down, your brow is softened, your jaw. Let it descend right down through the center of your body into your neck. And let the light shine across your shoulders and down your arms to your fingertips. Then coming back to the nape of the neck, let it flow down into the torso, paying particular attention to any places where there is tension or tightness, sometimes around the shoulder blades. Let it fill your chest and come down to the small of your back. Let your belly be soft. Breathing into the belly. And coming down all the way to your sit bones. Let your glutes be soft as it flows down through your thighs, past your knees, your ankles, to the soles of your feet. Your whole body filled with this loving, soft, warm light. And now allow it to come back up through the body and come to rest at the level of your heart. And as you inhale, imagine that this light is being energized. And as you exhale, imagine that it is filling your whole body with the love of the universe. And think, oh, how wonderful. I am loved. And it is my nature to love. So imagine as you inhale and it is energized, and as you exhale, it becomes uncontainable. And this beautiful, loving light begins to pass through all of your pores. And it creates an aura of light around you. And it fills the room. And everyone it touches receives this love. Again, inhaling, energizing, exhaling, let it expand through the walls, all the way out, 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 and around the world. Imagine that you are sending universal love to every single living being. And you can bring to your mind's eye anyone that you know that could benefit right now from being loved, from feeling loved. And let that love settle in their heart. To all the places where there is unrest. And let it expand beyond this world, out into the multiplicity of universes, as far as imagination will allow. And then gradually, like breath on a mirror, it comes back. Until once again, it is the size of this room and the size of your body. And then just a small sphere, loving light resting at your heart. Always available. And rejoice in that I am loved and it is my nature to love. How wonderful. So now, please come back into the room when you're ready to open your eyes. And for anyone who wasn't here yesterday, or I just thought to maybe just say, the gist of the teaching yesterday was really to look at the four thoughts that turn our mind to practice, to look at how precious our life is, to look at its impermanence, to look at how every single action that we do, what we think, what we say, and how we act, every single one plants a seed on the mental continuum that ripens in either happiness or suffering. So it behooves us to pay attention, to be mindful. And the fourth thought is to really understand suffering. The suffering of being trapped in cyclic existence, forced without choice through birth, aging, sickness, and death. Not getting what we want, getting what we don't want, and losing what we love. Primarily doing it alone. So what is it that creates this cycle called samsara? It is the mind. The great master Saraha said, I bow down to that which projects both freedom and the cycle. I bow down to that which grants me every goal I desire. I bow down to the mind, for it is mind and mind alone that is the seed of everything. It is mind that binds us or sets us free. So this is what we do. We try to understand the mind. So in the process of trying to understand this whole, the root of cyclic existence, we're going to meditate again. So this meditation is courtesy of Kathleen Dowling Singh, who wrote the book Unbinding. Unbinding. It's really quite a remarkable book on the 12 links of dependent arising. I came into contact with this book after a book club with my crones. I have friends that we had a book club, and we read Grace in Aging, and which was a fabulous book. And then we decided to, Kathleen Singh wrote Grace in Aging, Grace in Living, Grace in Dying, and Unbinding, those 4 books. And she has since passed away from cancer. But these are, Unbinding, I found, was a really excellent explanation in more lay terms of how it is that we create our world. So this is, I think, a very good meditation. So please, just be still, be silent as much as possible. And this is an imagination. So we'll use our imagination. So as we sit, perhaps taking 3 breaths to be present. Now imagine, if you will, sitting beside a clear mountain stream, flowing along peacefully. There is an uneven rock ledge that juts out a bit into the water, just enough to create a little waterfall. And some of this water is pushed toward the edge, giving rise to a small eddy, a swirling in an indentation of the bank. Imagine it there. The eddy circles around and around, remaining fixed in its position. It becomes backwater while the rest of the stream flows by. Inside the eddy, momentum concentrates and moves inward to the pattern of circling. It turns its attention away from the fresh and freely flowing stream. The eddy is defined by the circular pattern, identifying with the circled boundary as something, and a something separate from the freely flowing stream. Imagine how the eddy checks its circular motion well and often, monitoring it carefully so as to circle well, to remain in the comfort of the familiar. It compares itself to neighboring eddies, judging and evaluating. It imputes itself as separate, independent, and needing to be protective of its own circularity. It comes to cherish its own swirling, the dynamic that creates its tiny universe. And it cherishes the debris caught within the swirls of its muddy orbit. Its view becomes myopic. It forgets all about the ancient mountain down which the stream flows. It forgets the centuries of melting snows and summer rains that create the stream, the mass of tree roots and the rutted animal paths that determine the course of the stream as it flows down. It forgets all the immeasurable causes and conditions that give rise to its appearance. Not looking, ignoring, the eddy assumes itself according to its ignorance. It ignores that its patterning never for a moment holds the same water. It doesn't look, and it doesn't see that in each new moment, new water is recruited. Holding itself as eddy only, an isolated phenomenon, it remains ignorant of the fact that nothing exists independently of the conditions giving rise to it, that all of life leads to each arising. Unaware, not looking, it ignores its fragile impermanence. A small rabbit, a fox, could cross upstream at any moment, dislodging a waterlogged twig, changing the course of the stream. The eddy would be gone in an instant, leaving no trace in the water, as if it were never there. Unaware, not looking, the eddy clings to the circled fabrication. It ignores its essential nature, never realizing that its separation from the living water is only imagined. Beyond assumed identities and limitations, everything is already interconnected in all aspects. Just so, our own fleeting appearance is an eddy in a temporarily stable pattern of continually changing elements. We sustain ourselves through constant definition. In the eddy's case, through its circularity. In our own case, through our equally circular inner dialogues. Awareness is an endless continuum. Our clinging to an egoic self-sense keeps us in a limited point of reference on that endless continuum. After releasing our attachment to whom we have believed ourselves to be, we still have a grateful, humble, and noble awareness of existing as an individual manifestation of grace. This sense of our individual manifestation remains necessary, not just to survive, but to be an offering to others, an agency of kindness and compassion. This is our humanity. And so, this is our circularity, our samsara. What is samsara? It's living at the mercy of ignorance. It's not a place. It's not a set of conditions held in orbit by ignorance and characterized by tension, confusion, and an egoic sense of self. It is that. It is not a place. It is a set of conditions that we hold tightly to our sense of self. And it's characterized by suffering, noted by the Buddha's first noble truth. The reality that we seek is the embodiment of truth, the elimination of holding oneself and what belongs to the self as reality itself, which it is not. And that's from Lama Tsongkhapa. So inquiry into the truth leads with increasingly penetrating power to compassion for ourselves and all others, to a determined curiosity of how do we create this? How do we create this dynamic? And to the limiting consequences of the dynamics. Recognition of suffering, suffering's causes, allows us freedom of options. Understanding how samsara is created and perpetuated removes the veil that clouds our ability to see the true nature of reality. The wisdom realizing emptiness. It is the wisdom realizing emptiness that pierces through the eye illusion. When we see, there's nobody home. So there's no one to hold to the suffering. So it's wisdom's clear seeing is realization. It's liberating. And it's the end of the eye illusion. The path that we're on keeps pointing us in the right direction. And we come to know that our essential nature is not other than awakened awareness. We come to know that beyond a shadow of a doubt. So the peace that we experience in the pause and the insight resting in the gaps leads us to the realization of the truth, the cessation of suffering, the third noble truth. There is a cessation of suffering. I say, it's in the pause. It's in the pause. So the peace is cessation. Yes. And in that pause, we have a taste, minding the gap, you see. Suffering ceases as attention rests more and more deeply in the truth. And we continually surrender our attachment to self. Shall we meditate again? Think about just for a moment, just for a few moments. In this moment, try to recall an experience that you acknowledged as suffering, even a fairly benign experience, an instance of frustration or animosity, anxiety, or discouragement. Just one instant, perhaps recently. How entrenched were you at the time? And even as you recall the experience, how entrenched was the belief in the self who suffered that? Note how intricately woven the sense of self is in this particular story of suffering. What I did not like. Do you sense entrapment in the nature of thoughts, in the sensation of the body, in the open or closedness of the heart? Can we see how, in our recollection, the illusion of I and suffering co-arise? And see how fleeting each one is, how the thoughts, the emotions, the sensations. Just watch for a minute and watch for the gaps between the ever-changing appearance and disappearance of all that arises. Find the gap and rest in it. There is no I in the gap. Rest in that peace, for it is that peace that frees us and lights our way home. It is inquiry, a focused mind committed to creating meditative equipoise so that we can see. Surrender is a renunciation of attachment and identification. It's a release of ignorance. And once we see through the illusion, we no longer assent to it. Once we see through the illusion, we no longer assent to it. Okay. And here we are. Rather than plummet into unknowing, we create an identity project, endlessly proclaiming what we want, what we believe, and who we think we are. And we are addicted to continuing the cycle of ignorance. We use our identity project to weave a solid ground, to stitch a seamless narrative that we believe to be me. Buddha taught that it's our birthright, our privilege, and our purpose to recognize our true nature as awakened awareness. It's freedom, you see. It's limitless. It's luminous, pure, conceptual. Non-conceptual awareness. We're so much more than we believe ourselves to be. So what do we think about ourselves? Buddha said we have these 4 basic misconceptions. First of all, we think it's constant. We are constant. A constant is a situation that does not change. And we tend to hold the I and me as constant. The I illusion is always newly fabricated by ever-changing arisings and circumstances. But the sense of being a self remains the same. I'm me. This is me. It's like we place a label like a reused Post-it. This is me. On a continuum of constantly changing phenomena. So this is what's interesting, is that the truth is that it's not so much that we are trapped and limited in an ego, but rather our attention is trapped. You see, and this distinction is enormous because it leads to freedom. Why? Because we can change our attention. Where we place our attention. Recognizing, being mindful. Attention is a beautiful gift, and it's a quality of formless awareness. So how do we exist? We do exist, but not in the way that we believe. Our attention is trapped in ego. You see? You see? We make it up as we go. We're trapped within this confusion of believing that we are something other than awakened awareness, wisdom, clear seeing. So the key to piercing this defended boundary of the egoic sense of self is acknowledging the suffering that occurs within those imagined boundaries. When I was thinking about that, I thought, there was a king who, I think it was a king. Anyway, there was someone who came to the Buddha and said, look, I'm really busy. I have this kingdom to run. And how can I practice? And he said, gain and loss, pleasure and pain, fame and ill repute, praise and blame, treat them the same. And I thought about that. Why would that cut through the illusion of a self? Because we are constantly putting a Post-it on what we like and what we don't like. We're constantly wanting praise for something that doesn't even exist. It's laughable, really. Anyway, I thought that was, that was one of those, oh, yeah, okay. So there is no wall, there's no fence, there's no boundary in awakened awareness. And if you remember, if mind is a continuum, we talked about that yesterday, this stream of consciousness, which we see as this eddy, we're in this circularity, but if really consciousness is a stream that's flowing, we limit ourselves at this point of saying, this is who I am. I have a friend who said, look, I'm just an angry person. Anyway, that's our label, our post-it note. So our understanding of the Four Noble Truths holds great benefit if we want to awaken from this dream of self and suffering. The truth of the path is what carries us out of the tight, binding grip of self, out of samsara, and directly into the recognition of awakened awareness as our essential nature. And dependent arising, these teachings describe an endless patterned movement that continually creates samsara, living at the mercy of ignorance. And dependent arising, this one, describes the system of suffering, the actual change, the interplay of causal conditions in a moment, in an hour, in a day, in a year, in a life. How we circle into past, future lives. This is a dependent arising. And it is the 12 links of dependent origination, Buddha's explanation of how we create and perpetuate the suffering cycle of samsara, living at the mercy of ignorance. It was Buddha's insight on dependent arising that were his core realizations when he awakened. It's their dynamics that provide a map, a universal map of suffering, a diagram of causes and conditions creating samsara. And it's commonly called the wheel of life. I think there's probably going to be one somewhere in this building. And that is the wheel of life. So the story about this tanka of the wheel of life is that there was a king during Buddha's time who was given a gift by a neighboring king. It was King Bimbisara who went to the Buddha and said, look, you know, my neighbor gave me this amazing gift and I have to give him something even more amazing. So what can I give him? And the Buddha described this wheel of life. And he said, paint this, have this, offer this. And he explained the meaning of this wheel of life. And when the king read the inscription at the bottom of this tanka, it said that he immediately developed renunciation and the whole kingdom benefited. You can't see that inscription on this image, but the inscription was, the cause of our unwanted suffering is rooted in the delusions obscuring the essentially pure nature of our mind. Delusions obscuring the essentially pure nature of our mind. That's the cause of suffering. So on this, we can see Yama. Yama is holding this circle, the Lord of Death. And we can see in the upper right, we can see Buddha pointing to the moon, ultimate and conventional bodhicitta, this enlightened mind. He's off the wheel. He's not on the wheel. He's off the wheel. So the painful experiences depicted shouldn't be seen as inflicted from without. When you look at these various pictures, and it's hard to see, I know, up there on the screen, but you can study that up close and personal if you get an image of that and look at those various images, which I'm going to describe to you. But we may think whenever we're looking, and as I mentioned yesterday, the teachings on the hell realms, the 18 different realms that are so unbelievably difficult to think about, to see, to read about. We think it's something that's out there that's going to happen to us. Same with the Prater realm, you know, this poverty mentality, or the animal realm, the suffering of fear and stupidity. We think that that's something that's going to happen to us, some outside something. In reality, it's inside. It's in our mind. And who was it that said yesterday, I can go from, I think it was Tony, said, I can go from one moment of happiness to one moment of the hell being's rage, you know? And this is what happens to us. So to be able to see how this wheel, this cycle happens moment by moment, not just life to life. You know, this is the key. To be able to recognize how suffering comes from holding this view of ignorance, that I and what belongs to me is reality itself, which it's not. And it's only through investigation, analysis, exploration that, as the Buddha said, then you see how the mind fabricates its experience of the world. But only if we look. Only if we look. Because all of these are workings of the mind. And at the very center, in this particular one, I wonder. No, whoops. We have to go back to this. I don't think I can make it bigger. Would you like to help me make it bigger? Mm-hmm. Oh, isn't that fabulous? Do you see the pig? There's a pig, there's a snake, and there's a pigeon. So sometimes, in this particular tanka, the pig, which represents ignorance, is actually the snake, and the pigeon are coming out of the mouth of the pig. And in some tankas, the same wheel of life is painted where they are like holding on to each other's tail, you know, they're in a circle, which shows their interconnectedness, their interdependence. Thank you for, eventually, you know, probably, maybe, like learning to play the piano, you know, eventually the The fingers know how to do that. Anyway, so we can see Yama's holding this wheel with the pig in the middle. So the previous slide, I said the previous slide, no, it is this slide. So I was going to have a break at 11, which is 4 minutes from now, so that you could have a stand up and a walkabout. So maybe we'll do that now before I go through what these different realms are. Okay, so let's take a 5-ish break. Stretch your legs. So we can see the center there as a result of abiding in ignorance. We have attraction and aversion. Yes. So then around that circle, you can see the black on the right and the white on the left. And so the black depicts the lower realms and the white, it depicts the upper realms. And so on the right where they, did I say left? Anyway, doesn't matter. White is the upper realms, black is the lower realms. And those are the hell beings, the hungry ghosts, and the animals depicted inside the black. And on the left, depicted inside the white, are, yes, yes, we have the humans, the gods, and the demigods. Vanna White, thank you so much. Yes, we're very grateful. Yes. So that is actually represents the bardo, the in-between state. And that it is said that in the bardo, after death, before rebirth, that one actually takes the form of the being that in the realm that you're headed. This is what I have heard, that this is what happens. So then around that center are the 6 realms. So if you look straight down at the bottom, and it's very hard to get an idea of what is going on in the hells. But anyway, predominantly the cause of being born in a hell realm is fearful anger and extremely harmful actions like murder, engaged in while motivated by powerful delusions. So even in the human realm, we can experience a measure of hellish suffering. And we can see that. We don't have to go very far to see that in our world. So just as if sometime we feel paranoid, or a hellish rage because we didn't get what we want or we got what we didn't want, imprisoned in paranoia, these kinds of very, very difficult minds. And then the hungry spirits or the praetor realm, their primary delusion, you can see they have very big bellies and very scrawny necks. And they have a very hard time finding food or drink. So, and if they do, then they have a hard time swallowing it. And when it gets into their belly, it's acidic. I think we can probably experience, sometimes these kinds of experiences in our own life. But the primary delusion that leads to such a birth is miserliness. And so these beings suffer from insatiable hunger and thirst, holding on to our stuff. And then the animal realm, yes, the main cause for an animal rebirth is slavishly or stupidly following sensory desires. And animals suffer from limited intelligence. They suffer from being chased and eaten. They're used for heavy labor, exposed to heat and cold, and they're being plagued by hunger and thirst. So these are the 3 lower realms. Yeah. And then we come to the human realm, which is considered one of the upper realms. Yes. So despite their wishes to experience happiness and avoid suffering, humans are continuously misled by their ignorance and have to experience unwanted miseries again and again. We call it the desire realm, actually. Nothing is ever just right. So in terms of spiritual growth, the human realm is the most fortunate of all, because all humans can learn to cultivate ethics, moral self-control, concentration, and wisdom, the 3 higher trainings. We can all cultivate those to gain freedom and liberation and actually get off the wheel, out of Yama's clutches. So then the demigods, yes, the demigods, they have enormous, extremely pleasant surroundings with attractive companions and intense sensory delights, but they're jealous that the gods have it better. So they're constantly creating war because they want what the gods have. So they're consumed by this jealousy of the superior gods. And instead of enjoying what they have, they can engage in continual warfare with those above them. Does it sound familiar? And then there's the gods. Yes, the gods. So some gods are engaged in defending themselves from attacks by inferior gods, while others live a life of uninterrupted sensory indulgences. So, and some in higher planes actually abide in a blank-minded mental absorption, mistaken as liberation. And eventually karma runs out, and they face death, and they fall to lower realms. And it is said that at that time, the gods experience extreme pain in their mind, so much difficulty because they're losing, and they see that they are falling into lower realms, and they're losing all of that enjoyable life. I think maybe 500 years. They live 500 years or something like that. Yes? Something enormous. So none of the experiences in the 6 realms are permanent or everlasting. They're totally dependent on causes and circumstances. Psychologically speaking, we can be elevated from a hungry ghost to a blissful deva realm in a matter of moments. Yes. But sooner or later, our stay comes to an end. Yes. Death is not the final extinction. It's a transition between one life and the next, a change of clothing, if you will. Mind is a beginningless continuum, moving from life to life, body to body, a transfer from one guest house to another. So just as we move up and down in this life, like in our life, sometimes things are nice and some things are not so nice. Well, just like that, life to life is up and down, depending on causes and conditions. Same, life to life. And I did mention the bardo. Yes, I did. So the mechanism that compels us to move up and down is the outer circle that's outside those 6 realms. You don't have to get up, my darling. Thank you, Vanna. Relax, enjoy as much as possible, dear. Yes, because we're going to move on. So this is the system of suffering team. when I realized it, SOS, I thought, I put that on their t-shirts. I thought, oh yeah, SOS, help. So I'm going to go through these different, these 12 links. These are the 12 links of dependent origination, and I will go through them in more detail. But just to say, the first one is ignorance. The second is mental formations. The third is consciousness, name and form, the six sense spaces, contact, feeling or sensation, craving, grasping, becoming, birth, old age, and death. And round and round and round we go. So we start with ignorance. Ignorance is depicted as a blind person. And ignorance is a confused fog that arises from our unwillingness to actually inquire into the truth. Or actually, it's not really necessarily an unwillingness, it's an unknowing, that we don't know that there is a possibility of something other than what is, right? So ignorance hides the dynamic of the very formation of the I illusion because we think it's real. And it constricts our attention and it validates and assents to our beliefs. So it is this confused fog. It rests on assumptions and mistaken conclusions. I think His Holiness calls it a misknowing. We think we know, but we have it wrong. It's simply a willingness to ignore. So we are born with this belief, and it's deeply rooted in our psyche. And until we pull it out by the root, we will continue to cycle. So the result of this belief in oneself is to hold tightly to what we love, wishing it would always be like this, never wishing it to end. And believing it will never end, that we can fix it, we can create it, we can make this really nice situation and keep it there. This is ignorance. It's believing something that isn't so. It's believing that objects, people, places, and things are imbued with qualities that are pleasant or unpleasant, naturally, that they're inherently wonderful or worthy of possession, or they're inherently hateful and worthy of derision. Can you see that? Can you see how we automatically, we're going to look more deeply at this, how we automatically like it and want it and try to keep it? So an impartial examination uncovers that this is simply not the case, that things are not as they appear, but it's the habit of our mind to imbue objects with inherent existence and then try to either possess them or be free of them. And this is what keeps us trapped on this, as Alan Wallace calls it, hedonic treadmill. Chasing after something that doesn't even exist. So the second link is karmic formations. And this is depicted as a potter. And this refers to this condition of habit that's deeply ingrained. And this is where our stories, our assumptions, our desires, our beliefs, our narrative consistent memories abide. Karmic formations, these seeds, they give shape to momentary arisings. There's just a momentary arising But because of the karmic seeds, it gives shape to these instances of actions, thoughts, words, actions, deeds. Each time an action is created, the potential from that action produces a future rebirth that's imbued with that consciousness. So this potential, it resides within the continuum. Somebody once asked me, many people ask, and I have asked this same question: where do those seeds live? You know, if the consciousness is a stream of awakened awareness, where do they abide? This is something to investigate, isn't it? Shankar, where do they live?
So different traditions have different explanations, but in our tradition, they do abide in the consciousness, although we have a stream of consciousness, it is empty of any inherent existence. So you can figure that one out. And but the karmic formations just, they don't abide anywhere but other than just in the continuum as it goes from life to life. But it's still empty of inherent existence.
Thank you. Yes. It is an interesting one to ponder, however, because we want to make it real. Is there some kind of jewel box? No. Yes, it is. It is like that. There is no inherent existence within this continuum. And the phrase mind takes its shape from what it rests upon is very useful to remember, because what the mind rests upon is the nurturing of seeds that then ripen as positive or negative experiences. So the potential that it resides within the continuum of the mind, that potential is activated and eventually connects with a future rebirth. So there is I think Talopa said, view the mind as having no thought other than repetition. It's useful. We inquire, we think, we investigate, we analyze, we explore, we check up, as Lama used to say. You check up, dear. So then comes name and form. So name and form refers to the mental and physical aggregates of the new life upon conception, the mind and body that will continue and develop throughout the life of a new embodiment within cyclic existence. It's also, and this is important, it's also manifesting in every moment as an object appears. We label it, we give it a name, and we imbue it with the qualities that we believe that it has inherently. So name and form is actually manifesting in every moment as an object appears. We label it, give it a name, and imbue it with qualities. This is seen on the wheel of life as two people in a rowboat. I'm going to go back here, because I didn't say that consciousness, a monkey mind. Thank you for mentioning. Yes, I knew I didn't mention it. So name and form is depicted by two men. It says men, but two people in a rowboat. Name and form. There's a form, there's an object. We give it a name. We grasp, we believe that it's real. And then comes the six sense spaces. So these are the apparatus of our six senses: eye, ear, nose, like that. And they're depicted on the wheel as a house with empty windows, six empty windows. I think there's an empty door and then 5 empty windows. So as the body and mind develop, the six sense bases gradually form, and they'll enable the six sense consciousnesses to know their respective objects. So for instance, it's through the eye sense power that the eye consciousness will be empowered to know form. Like that. So we see it as we come into contact. Contact is depicted by a man and woman making love. And once empowered by one of the six sense spaces, upon meeting an object, contact arises. So as soon as you meet the object, it's contact. So this is the moment when the sense space, its respective object, and the corresponding consciousness come together. So if you think of it at this point, that it's like through ignorance, we create actions that plant a seed on the consciousness, that ripen in name and form. The sense bases develop, the sense consciousness develop, and they come into contact. And that's where we are right now. I see it. I come into contact. So it's interesting because the first micro moment is an instant of pure, unadorned, bare perception. Actually what I see is shape and color. It's interesting. So it's the naked truth about the object. But the mental factor which occurs at the same time functions to distinguish the object as pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral, and then allows for an experience of the object, which then gives rise to a feeling. And this is depicted by a man with an arrow in his eye. So on the basis of contact with objects that are distinguished as pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral, then the feeling of happiness or unhappiness or indifference arises respectively. And this depends on habit. So it completes the experience of the object, this feeling. So now I have a feeling about this object. So no matter what kind of feeling arises, beings fall under the influence of the mind that becomes happy, unhappy, or indifferent. And they continue throughout this rebirth, becoming the source of a strong drive for seeking pleasure and avoiding pain during the life. Absolutely. Good. What does that mean? Oh, if it's a cause of ignorance. Well, it depends on your definition, I think. Perhaps. That's a good thing to ponder. Let's investigate. Think about it. He said, say it again, please. Oh,
if happiness is a step in this rise of our delusional nature or experience, then perhaps it is not a thing to be pursued as a good goal.
Okay. That's a very good thing to consider. What do other people think about that? What does that mean exactly? If we consider what happiness, the definition of happiness. Happiness is a state of well-being, contentment. That's Webster's definition. And contentment is defined as ease of mind, satisfaction.
That definition from the definition here?
Oh, that's a good question. Maybe it would be better stated to say the mind sees it as pleasant, unpleasant, or not worthy, indifferent. That's a very good point, isn't it? Words matter. Yeah. Anybody else have a question, comment, statement of fact? Fancy?
First. Jude, who's first? Okay. So I'm curious, like when a baby eats spinach for the first time or a pea and they spit it out and they have this weird face, where does that come from?
Yes, I would say probably habit. Yes, it is from the seed that's imprinted from past habit.
From
past. But you see what happens. Have you ever noticed in babies who, they kind of, first you get the peas and they're kind of okay, and it's green. And then you get the spinach and it's like, So now everything that's green has a quality of not so much, not going to go there, even if it might be something like really sweet, a kiwi. Oh, great.
So that's an instant experience with an object that already has a story. Wow, that's amazing.
Isn't it amazing? Yeah. That's why our stories are so important, to pierce through the story, to recognize that it is a story. Wow, it's my story. And to watch the stories unfold in the mind. We come into contact and we have this feeling, oh, I like. We're going to go on because there's more in here that's going to kind of look at these different ways of how we view it. But it is so interesting when you look at children. 3 children raised in the same family, but they come in with their different personalities, it seems, It's really interesting to look at and to think about, for instance, you have someone may have a very difficult child. And yet they're not difficult people, they're very kind people. But this child wants to go out and step on bugs, and do things to harm. It's very interesting to see how the minds are different, how the stream of consciousness, how seeds are planted in every different mind differently. And if I think of it like that, and I think about people for whom I have an unpleasant experience, I think, I'm labeling them like this because I don't like what they're doing. But in fact, if I think of them as being blown by the winds of their own karma and delusion, I think, oh, that's a real pity because I have an understanding of that wheel of life and that what goes round comes round. And there's a great deal of suffering in the future for an individual who's perpetrating harm. So somehow I can bring my mind to a sense of compassion. Because if I'm hard-hearted about it, who's suffering? Certainly not the person for whom I have disdain. It's me, this hard heart. So soften around that. But spinach, we're back to spinach. Yes, it's seeds planted that ripen. Sometimes you can see different children, babies from the moment they're born. Some of them are placid and content, and some of them just cannot be consoled. It's very interesting to watch. And twins, even twins, that's right, even twins. It's true. Thank you. Good question.
Okay, I just found myself being curious in this discussion about how this all interfaces with, if we experience something as pleasant, what then becomes the clinging and grasping and demanding aspect of it? It's kind of like a little bit of, oh, okay, this is nice. And if I can let go, that's one piece. The same thing with the unpleasant. I don't really like spinach, but if I'm going to just be defending myself at every moment. So I'm just curious about how this all plays into this feeling aspect of it, and how do we grow the clinging and grasping or
Excellent. Excellent. Very good question. Exactly right. It's the exact question because the next link. Thank you. It is like that, So this is actually depicted as a man drinking wine or a person drinking wine or beer on the wheel. So in response to the various feelings experienced, there follows craving. So we want more of what we like and less of what we don't like. And the mental factor that is the desire to not be separated from the feeling of happiness or pleasant, the desire to separate from the unpleasant or the feeling of unhappiness. This comes into play right there. So as soon as we recognize, if we recognize that it's not the object, it's not the spinach, it's the mind. It's not that the spinach is giving rise to disgust. It is the mind that is experiencing the disgust due to past seeds planted. Because if spinach was inherently disgusting, no one would eat spinach. So when we recognize that, there's the first chance to step off the wheel. When we have a feeling and we recognize it's okay to enjoy. Lama said over and over again, enjoy as much as possible, dear, without grasping, which comes next. We crave it and we grasp it, We grasp it because we want to hold on to that experience, but that experience is like water running through your fingers. You can't hold it. It's changing. So we take our understanding of interdependence and impermanence to hold it gently, to enjoy without grasping. Does it make sense? Yeah? Comments? Questions? Debate? Yes, we have, it's very good. Yes.
Looking at the flower. It's beautiful,
Your mind looking at the
enjoy it.
flower. Mhm.
but do not take it.
Right. You enjoy the flower, but you don't pick it from someone's yard, which I tell my 2-year-old. Oh, look. She goes, oh, my granddaughter. Yes. Yes, it's true. It's true. That would be the using our the mind that actually looks at the ethic, our moral compass. I'm not going to go pick that flower, I'm going to enjoy it. It's interesting how the virtuous actions, what will bring us happiness. It's just also when you see a flower, to take that flower and just think in your mind to offer it. Notice what happens in the mind. If you look at that flower, you go, oh, so beautiful. I just offer it to all those who've gone beyond. And also, I make a prayer that every being might have an opportunity to see such beauty in their world. And you notice what we're doing is training our own mind. We're training our own mind to have a state of well-being, contentment, satisfaction, ease of mind. And this joy, ultimately joy, which comes from having this state of mind. So then we crave, right? We want, yes. And what happens next is that we grasp. And did I see what? Oh, yes, I did say craving. So grasping is depicted by a monkey picking fruit. So the intensity of craving increases because we're craving, I really want that, and the craving grows into grasping. Gotta have it. Gotta have it, It's a mental factor that heightens our desirous attachment. And at the time of death, it is grasping that nourishes and activates a karmic potential in the consciousness. Mind takes its shape from what it rests upon. This is really important if we're thinking about life after life and moment by moment satisfaction, ease of mind. What are we cultivating? What are we growing in our garden? This is an important thing because grasping grows into becoming. We become the one that has that thing that we want, that we believe is going to bring us happiness. So this is the link. It's depicted by a pregnant woman. And the link of becoming, it refers to a karmic potency upon the occasion of being thoroughly nourished and activated by craving and grasping. So it's the irresistible urge to become somebody. So in this case, it's if it's life, if it's within moments of this life, if we think about this, it's very interesting because think about something that you think you would like to have. Advertisers are very good at creating this craving. The reason that we have to have that, you see. Oh, there's this really nice thing. So we think that what we crave is going to give us the satisfaction and happiness. If we get it, it's going to give us the happiness we seek. So consider someone shows you, sometimes I have my phone here on my table so that I can pick it up. Someone shows you the latest and greatest. So this happened to me when I was coming out of a long retreat. So my neighbor said, oh, you really should. I had a flip phone. And she said, oh, you really should have a smartphone. And I said, I don't want what is a smartphone? I don't want a smartphone Because if I have a smartphone, then she showed me, oh, look, you can get your emails on your phone and you can text people. And I said, I don't want that. Carry that around and have somebody dinging me all day. No, I don't want that. But over time, I started thinking about that. Well, it would be beneficial if I was able to get that email from that friend who was going to write to me. Yes. And so eventually, yes, I got a phone thinking that there would be greater happiness in my life if I had that phone. So I had the box with the nice phone in it, and I opened the box and I took the phone out and I looked at this. I couldn't figure out how to turn it on. So this object that I thought was going to be the object of satisfaction was actually an object of irritation. I had imbued it with certain qualities. So this is what happens to us over and over and over again that we see. Please, you have a question. One second. Yes, a comment. Good.
I was thinking, but what about other people you maybe are helping their lives by having that phone?
Oh, yes. Yes. It is a mental, it is an investigation. It's an exploration, and you determine what's most beneficial, right? But be objective about that. Is it really beneficial?
Examination.
Exactly.
Self-examination.
Investigate, explore, analyze, check up whether it is going to be the best solution to your problem. Because if it's also thinking that if you analyze that, and you're thinking from your side that it's really for the benefit of your friend who wants to get in touch with you, anyone, let's say, yes, I'm going to get that because someone needs this. But then if I analyze that and I look at the person who needs it, do they really need it? Or can they wait until I get home and answer my landline? It is. It is tricky and it's to look at. Yeah. Very interesting. Because once you have another question? No. Okay. Okay. Yes, we can.
Then wouldn't hoping and praying for something be the same as craving?
Hoping and praying. That's a very good question. And the question is it is interesting. What do you think? I mean, what do you think happens when you pray or when you hope for a positive outcome or a negative outcome?
I personally gave up hoping a long time ago.
You gave up hoping.
Yes.
Mm. Mm.
It doesn't mean anything. And I find that as a craving.
You find hope is a craving. Mm. If we don't have an idea that there is this ability to go beyond the suffering of this life, is that if I think that there is an opportunity for enlightenment or freedom from suffering, is that a hope?
I don't necessarily see that as a hope. I'm thinking more in terms of like when people say, oh, I hope you get better. I hope these people don't die. I hope my life is this way. I hope, there's this kind of false basis on hope that people hold and it doesn't happen.
Right. However, if we look at the purpose, if we look at having hope, if we think what's happening to my mind if I'm thinking about someone who's ill and I am having a prayer that they will be healed. So it softens my own mind in that moment. And let's say they are not healed because there is an energy. There is an energy in prayer. There is an energy that if there is a karmic seed for that person to be healed, that energy from my prayer can help activate that seed. So if we think about world prayer, everyone praying for peace, there's an energy that's created that actually puts things in place to bring about peace. So there's something that happens that's beyond our ken, that there is benefit, even if it's just in our own mind. Mary, you have something?
Yes, and if you even step back from that and just think that everything is energy,
Yes.
right? And that kind of brings it all together. Do you want to?
Yes, everything being energy. If you think like that, And if we look scientifically, but that's not the way that we normally look, but if we just look at what we're trying to accomplish is a universe of love, compassion, wisdom, and joy. So if we don't have hope, I guess it's a question of what is the definition of hope? I'd have to bring Webster in. It is a longing for an event. It's a longing for this wish to be accomplished, to have hope, that the longing for the greater good might manifest. What that does for my mind is to bring me to a sense of peace. And I know I can't change what I can't change. And I have to accept what I can't change. But I'll change what I can. That's what the Serenity Prayer. It's also Shantideva's prayer. Change what you can. Accept what you cannot. And then cultivate the wisdom to know the difference. But we have to accept. I mean, this is the basis of the Four Noble Truths. Start there. There is suffering. What can I do to help alleviate that suffering? First thing I can do is to cultivate loving kindness and compassion in my own mind and try to make these ripple effects happen in my world as I look at other people, try to help other people, try to bring love and kindness to other people. The result of that is my own benefit. As His Holiness says, the greatest gift is loving kindness, is compassion. Cultivating compassion. He said bodhicitta is actually the most selfish thing you can do because it brings oneself the greatest happiness. Because as soon as we can get rid of that self and other, there is just this awakened awareness that is imbued with a sense of an energy of compassion, which is a really beautiful state of mind. And we can abide in that and still be agents of kindness in the world. And this is where it comes with the feeling that comes if I like, I don't like, I'm craving more, I'm craving less. This is the wisdom that understands the seeds that are being planted when we are cultivating minds of greed, ignorance, and hatred. Those seeds are perpetuating a mind of suffering. And when we know that, then we can begin to pull those weeds out of the garden and just grow the beautiful flowers over and over again, water them and give sun. Does it make sense? It's something to really cook, to cook it. It's hope is not expectation. I don't expect it to happen, but I hope it will. I understand that I can't change that. The present is here. This is what is. And whether I suffer or whether I have happiness or suffering is dependent on the mind. You know, I can understand when I lose something that I love, that I wished that I could keep it. But using the understanding of interdependence and impermanence, I can't hold anything. So how can I live a peaceful life? Then I have to recognize that. I enjoy as much as possible, but I can't grasp it. And as soon as I see, we can see people grasping. It's got to be this way. Causes such pain. Oh. We begin more and more and more to let go. Let go of holding. Let go of grasping. Because this irresistible urge to have, to grasp, to become, then that leads to birth. It leads to the link of birth, which is the first moment of appropriating the mental and physical aggregates of the next rebirth. Once the karmic potential has connected one with another existence. So this is also becoming the one that has the new iPhone, or that gets the new car, or that determines that if I just have this particular person in my life, I will be happy. And then you find out that, oh, actually, not so much. You see. So it's imbuing self and phenomena, or self and other people, as having qualities that are inherently true. And we either want them or we don't want them. And then once we have been born into a life, then that's depicted by it says man, but it should say, just say mother. A mother holding a baby. Could be a father holding a baby, but it's really a mother holding a baby so just to mention that the slides that I have been using, I made a PDF of them and I sent them to Venerable, and he put them in the materials. So you can have them if you want to buzz through the slides that I have been showing to refresh your memory. So you'll know when you come to the element of birth, because it has man, the man mother. Wonder what that is. I can't say that everything is perfect. So, and once we have given birth, we have arrived, then the next thing is aging and death. And that is, aging begins at birth. And it includes the progressive aging that occurs throughout the life, as well as the aging of the usual degeneration of old age. So it's aging throughout. Everything is getting old, no matter what it is that we have. And death will occur when the consciousness separates from the body at the end of that life. And that's the link of that is depicted as a man carrying a corpse. And then, so it's life to life and moment to moment. And it's as quick as an apple falling from a tree that we go through these links. So interesting to watch. Just check to see. So we will take a break and we will come back at 1:30, and then we'll go on to see how appearances arise.